The empire that erased itself from history. Have you ever wondered? Can an empire become so powerful that one day it decides to erase itself from history? This is the story of the Veloria Empire, a name you won't find on any map today. A civilization that once stood at the center of the ancient world. Veloria's people were different. Their cities were built from dreams, not just stone. While other nations fought endless wars, Veloria built knowledge, art, and ideas far beyond their time. Their king, Aurelian, was a philosopher king, a ruler of wisdom and vision. They said his words could calm storms, and his armies could conquer nations before sunrise. But even with all that greatness, Aurelian carried a shadow in his heart, a fear that the world would never understand his vision. The people of Veloria lived like they were blessed. Music filled the air, markets glowed with golden lamps, and the palace walls told stories of humanity and hope. But behind every paradise, there is a secret. One day an old scholar warned the king, "The day man believes he is a god, his end has already begun." Aurelian laughed, but deep down, those words stayed with him. Years passed. Veloria grew richer, stronger, prouder. It conquered the lands around it. But the more powerful they became, the less human they felt. When pride replaces purpose, a civilization begins to rot from the inside. Aurelian had everything except peace. Every night he looked over his shining empire and whispered, "If my memory becomes a curse, then let no one remember me." And maybe that was the moment it began, the slow disappearance of Veloria. The city grew silent, the music stopped, and somewhere in the distance, a voice whispered, "Time to disappear." Some say Aurelian gave the final command. Erase us from memory, from history, from time itself. And after that, nothing. No trace, no ruins, no written word. Veloria was gone. All that remains is a whisper in the wind. A legend of a kingdom so powerful, it destroyed itself by choice. The legacy buried in silence centuries passed. The winds changed. The deserts shifted. And the world forgot the name Veloria. Empires rose and fell. But the story never truly died. It hid in the whispers of the earth, in the ruins buried beneath the sand. Travelers spoke of ghost cities in the desert, of voices in forgotten tongues, of symbols carved into stone, symbols no one could explain. Modern explorers later found strange fragments, glass that didn't belong to any known age, metal too advanced for its time, and scripts that mixed 1,000 languages. One historian dared to say the name Veloria, but history stayed silent. Because there was no proof, no ruins, no bones, no trace. Then one stone tablet was discovered. Only one line could be translated. We chose to disappear, so the world could begin again. Maybe Veloria didn't die from disaster. Maybe they chose to end themselves, to give the world a second chance. Perhaps every empire that rises today is just a reflection of Veloria, a warning from the past. Because the spirit of Veloria never really died. It lives in every human heart that reaches too high, that forgets its soul for greatness. Maybe their story was meant to fade, not to be remembered but to be felt. When you stand in the desert and the wind brushes your face, sometimes you can almost hear them whisper, "We became gods," and forgot what it meant to be human. The wind fades. Silence returns. But for a moment you realize that every empire, every name, every dream will one day turn to dust. And maybe that's not the end. Maybe that's the point. Veloria didn't vanish. It became a lesson, written not in books, but in the silence between civilizations. So when you walk through ruins, listen carefully. Because somewhere in the distance, you might still hear them whisper, "We were here." The fall that no one saw coming, they say. When an empire falls, it doesn't happen with noise, it happens in silence. Veloria, once the brightest light of the world, was fading like a candle in the wind. King Aurelian grew old. He had palaces taller than mountains, libraries full of forgotten knowledge, and armies that obeyed his every word. But the soul of Veloria was gone. The laughter had disappeared. The music was silent. The people were empty. One night, an earthquake cracked open a temple. Inside, they found an ancient tablet that warned, "When man reaches the heavens but forgets his heart, the sky itself will turn against him." The priests begged Aurelian to stop expanding, but his council refused. They believed Veloria was eternal. Then came the storm. It began as a strange, warm wind. By morning, the sky turned red. The rivers dried. The people began to vanish. Not die, not flee, vanish. No enemy. No war, no fire. Just emptiness. The streets filled with echoes of footsteps that weren't there. Children disappeared in their sleep. Entire villages woke up alone. Fear consumed the empire. Then, one night, Veloria's libraries were set on fire. Some say rebels, others say Aurelian himself. He watched the flames and whispered, "We created gods, and forgot we were only human." By dawn, the city gates stood open. The desert winds swept through, and the empire was gone. The travelers who came later found nothing. No ruins, no walls, no life. It was as if the land had erased its own memory. Veloria wasn't destroyed, it erased itself. Some believe Aurelian led his people into the desert, burying every symbol and story, declaring, "If the world cannot understand us, then let the world forget us." And so they vanished, not in war, but in silence. No graves, no tombs. No survivors, only the wind, whispering through the dunes, "Remember us," but not our name. That was the end of Veloria, an empire that touched the stars, but fell without a sound.